Live, and one more time, live. Good morning to everybody who's joining us today on Behind the Markets. Welcome to the Wealth Wednesday edition. This is the big conversation that we usually have on the middle of the week. Not much going on except a bond auction, but today we're going to be talking about our big topic of discussion today is Vernon, being wealthy versus looking rich. Okay, this is a big issue for many people. Being wealthy versus looking rich, because we're going to be talking about what was happening when we did those pension statistics yesterday and what that revealed and showed. While we're also going to be going through the rise of Aliko Dangote's oil refinery. He has done it. He done did it, as some people would say. Just watch out for the background noise. He's done it, as some would say. And thank you very much to everybody. Vernon, how are you doing?
Never better. We are doing great here in Lusaka. I don't know how things are.
Up here, I'm in Lusaka province, but I'm just not in Lusaka. That's the other thing. That I'm in Lusaka province. I'm hidden somewhere special for people to take care of. If you're watching us today, please give us a shout out. Tell us where you're watching us from. Tell your mother, tell your brother, tell everyone to join us today in the morning. If you want to catch a note on what to do with the money side of their life. Thank you very much, Vernon. Let's get started and let's get kicked off. Today's Wealth Wednesday, 24th of May, 2023. Let's kick off with some of the outlooks of the market. The roundup did show yesterday the Kwacha did cross over into the 19th sphere. 19th sphere did actually show that this is on the interbank rate. Remember, people, we use the interbank measure because that is the wholesale rate for purchasing Kwacha itself on the market. So please pay attention to the fact that that is the number we're showing. I know that some of you have already seen the Kwacha go as high as the dollar go as high as 19. And you're saying, but Munyumba, we already knew this. No, that was the retail rate. Here on Behind the Markets, we track the wholesale rate, which is the interbank rate, because that actually determines what. Because remember that banks have got two markets for dollars. They've got two specific markets for dollars. The first one is the market that they use where they sell to big institutions and to each other. So people who trade more than $10,000 in a single transaction, they buy the interbank rate of kwacha versus dollar. Those who do retail, in other words, you are just coming to swap $100, $200, whatever it is, less 1,000. Remember that you only can do 1,000 in a day anyway, unless you're a specialized trader. Then you're on the retail rate, which is usually a higher rate to buy dollars. So I just want to specialize that into your mind. There are two different markets for buying dollars. There's an interbank, or what we call the wholesale market, and then there is the retail market, which is for everybody else. So even your bureau de change companies, they go to the interbank market to fetch wholesale dollars, and then they sell them to you there at the retail market at their bureau de change. So that's kind of how this business works. Now, you also did see that the stock market did stay flat yesterday, while the bond market moved slightly upwards, only 0.7%. While we saw the in the US dollars, we saw it actually come down a little bit. Came down by about 0.97%, mainly due to the strengthening of the dollar, which was up about 0.9%. Now, if we look at the actual movements of the currency itself, we're still not as high as where we were before that dollar collapse that took place when it was at 20.82. We're still not as high as there, but we are getting there. We've bounced from 17.3 all the way up to 19 in a month. So the dollar has gone up by 9%, while the rand has only gone up by 2. The rand is about to go into a stronger than the rand is about to get into a super strength position. Remember that we have a 2.91% increase in the value of rands in the last month, which is what I always point out to the cross-border traders who go to South Africa to buy goods. Remember, that's a big market, and that actually affects a lot of you people, because those are the goods that then end up hitting your pocket. So it's cross-border traders who go to Dubai. They don't only sell years in Dubai, they sell stuff as well. Remember, people always think that somebody goes to Dubai, buys years, and becomes wealthy. This is why we're poor, people. This is why we're poor. Because that's the explanation for somebody being wealthy and not just hard work. But anyway, and at the same time, The reality of his is the rand is, as I said, the rand is getting stronger, so that might have inflationary impacts that's running down in this country. Now, if you're looking at the GRZ bond index, we did see that it's up 0.7%, up 10.91%, heading towards 11% year to date. So we actually are having a year where we're likely to see a secondary market bond index that might push past 22% this year. Mainly because of the older legacy bonds that are still sitting in the system. Remember the ones that were sold in 2021, be it the 2, 3, especially the 3 and the 5 year. The 2-year ones are now starting to sell off, but the 3 and the 5 year ones that were selling at 35% yield, those ones are still in the market. So they're going to be pushing a lot of the return on investment on secondary market bonds or just the bond stock. They're going to be pushing those interest rates relatively high. The US dollar index. Also, the US dollar index up down 0.97%, up 4.61%, coming down mainly because of the strengthening of the dollar. We saw interest rates take an unexpected turn back upwards by about 0.024%, pushing interest rates back up on the week, reversing all the gains that we've seen in interest rates coming down. So now they've gone back up. This was a little bit of a sell-off in the market yesterday. Simultaneously, we have seen crude oil down, copper down 0.71%. While crude oil went up 2.334%. There is still worries about the debt ceiling talks. However, there was 6 million barrels drawdown in U.S. crude oil inventories that actually pushed the price up. And there's a lot of upward pressure. You could also see gold is up as well, 0.22%, as the debt talks keep getting worse and worse. We're getting closer and closer. I'm going to talk to you today about the 3 options America has actually on the debt talk. If they actually do hit the debt ceiling, what are the 3 options the American Treasury has in order to do that? They're currently sidestepping it at the moment. They're currently sidestepping a debt store because they could have run out of money already. And now the 1st of June is when they're actually going to run out of money. And I'm going to talk about the 3 options that are on the table for them. We have seen cryptocurrency bounce back up to above the 500 mark, up 2.1%, while we saw Ethereum up 2.8%, and while we saw gold up 1.13%. So the wealth insurance assets are speaking to the fact that the world is in an unnerving situation. So keep your eyes on what is happening there. Sorry about the date here, but we are seeing that across cross-asset outlook, we are seeing that cryptocurrency is moving back upwards again. I say this again, people, risky, absolutely risky. Okay, keep it to a minimum. If you don't want to listen and you get your fingers burnt, to come back and tell me, but Munyumba, no, I told you, risky. Okay, but they have performed very strongly, so that's why you keep them to a small amount, so that whenever your main portfolio of bond stocks, when those ones don't do as strongly, these ones of US dollar, gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they can overpower those ones just for a little bit. So that's why you keep them at small amounts, because they are highly volatile. If you keep the majority of your portfolio in Ethereum, gold, US dollars, you will find yourself losing 30%, 20%, 40% at any given time. You will find yourself. Okay, I want you to also bear in mind this, Vernon, just so that people can understand. Bitcoin is at $519,000, 19,000 kwacha per Bitcoin. Do you know that about 2 years ago it was about 1.5 million? Okay, so it's lost 2/3 of its value just since then. Okay, just so that people can understand, it's actually lost 2/3 of its value, but it also ran from 300,000 to about 1.5 million. You will have BP issues if you put all your money here. Okay, so that's why I said you put part of it, and a very small part of it if you are going to dabble in. And if you're not comfortable with that level of volatility, don't even touch it at all. Okay, that's what you do. Stick to the simple things. I'm going to explain that to you. Stick to simple things. They're very good strategies to try and help you. So let's also get into some of the news items that we're also seeing today in terms of the economic calendar. Sorry, we don't have it plunked up on the screen today. But we're going to take a look also about the economic calendar today. We did see, as I said, oil data yesterday showed that we had a 6 million barrel draw. That was a big news that actually pushed oil upwards yesterday. We also did have yesterday, we had Japanese inflation coming in yesterday, core inflation up 3%. Remember, we were saying that Japanese real earnings were down from in the first part of this year, but they're expected to rise up. Inflation is about 3%. It moved up from 2.9%, and a 0.1% movement in Japanese inflation is a shocking thing. Public sector net borrowing in the UK was up higher than expected, 2.24. So it was up 24 billion. while we also saw German manufacturing PMIs went deeper into contraction. We also saw EU manufacturing PMIs also go deeper into contraction. British manufacturing PMIs also go deeper into contraction. US manufacturing PMIs also went deeper into contraction. Manufacturing sector in the US, the EU, the UK, and Germany all showing signs of contraction. Okay, that is actually a very dangerous sign. It's the service sectors which are actually doing quite well, but weak manufacturing sectors, and also China's manufacturing data was also weak as well. That is not good in the short run for things like copper. That's why I said when it comes to copper, you have to look at the short run. We're not going to see much. We're not going to see much good coming out of it. But somewhere across 2025 is where you're supposed to see a lot of the deficits and a lot of the high production that's coming back. And also, there hasn't been much in terms of the rise of China. New home sales in America also did come up. That was the good part of yesterday's manufacturing data. Remember that home sales are very important. Your copper goes to China, gets processed into wires and all sorts of building material. Where does it end up? The developed world and the Chinese construction industry, where it's actually utilized a lot. So when you see new home sales in America going up, that actually pulls a lot of demand for copper as well. So you do see that copper new home sales were up 4.1% versus the 4% growth from the previous month. So they're actually accelerating in growth. 683,000 new homes in the US were sold last week. It was sold last month in April. So that's actually good news for copper, as I said. Composite PMIs are where we're actually seeing a lot of production growth. In other words, so service sector PMIs. Composite PMIs for Germany were stronger. Composite PMIs for service PMIs came in at 57.8 versus the manufacturing PMIs, which were at 42.9. European PMIs, service PMIs were at 55.9 versus manufacturing, which was only at 44.6. So we're actually seeing that was also getting stronger as well. British services PMIs were at 55.1 versus the manufacturing PMIs, which were at 46.9. So you're seeing the service sector of the developing world is doing better, obviously because of the pandemic being worn out. So that's one of the major factors that's driving economic activity. It's developing nations' service sector, not the manufacturing sector. And that's not good news for Africa, because Africans depend on developed nations manufacturing things so that they can get our raw materials. This is why we need to get out of this raw materials thing, because evidently these people are deindustrializing. And the next industrial centers are going to be Bangladesh and Mexico, while we're not going to have the ability to send things to them, because we don't have the supply chain relationships with them. Even China is starting to deindustrialize. And this is one of the biggest concerns, probably, of President Xi. And as I said, the biggest news that came out of yesterday was API crude showed that 6.7 million barrels of oil were drawn out of the national inventory of the USA versus a buildup of 3.69 million barrels from the previous month. What data are we looking at today? Going into the rest of the economic calendar, we are picking up that core inflation. We're looking for core inflation data that had come out of the UK, literally just came out earlier this morning. Core inflation in the UK has actually gone up to 6.8%. So this is more likely that we're going to see UK interest rates getting pushed up by the UK central bank. The Bank of England will probably push up interest rates. PPIs did come down, so that's at least a leading indicator that you're seeing PPI inflation rates coming down. Core RPI also coming down, and CPI in the UK has come down to 8.7%, but that's mainly due to food prices and oil prices. The big problem is that the actual manufactured goods are actually coming up at higher prices. Okay, so inflation is in the system. It's not in the markets. That's where the problem is coming from. The markets are not importing inflation. It's the system that's now becoming inflated. So the companies have adjusted to elevated costs of inputs. That's where the problems are coming from in countries like the UK. And if you expect higher interest rates in the UK, expect higher London interbank rates. And if you expect higher London interbank rates, expect a higher cost to get dollars into developed countries like Zambia. Okay, it becomes more difficult for our international banks, or our banks that are operating here, to acquire dollars through the LIBOR market, or at least acquire dollars through their usual channels. Those become more expensive to deal with. So bringing dollars into the market by borrowing them or having them sent aside, it makes dollars more expensive in the emerging markets field. So that's what the LIBOR rate. That's why the LIBOR rate is the most important rate in determining what happens, whether dollars can actually get into Zambia or not. Remember, we're expecting CPI data also coming out either today or tomorrow. We're expecting it actually probably today because of the holiday tomorrow. If not, we're going to get it on Friday, but we're just waiting that. Mortgage data is also expected to come out today. GDP data is expected to come out of Nigeria, mortgage data out of America, GDP data out of Nigeria, PPI data coming out of Korea. So that is our basic data run from what we've picked up on. And biggest news, obviously, in the global economy still is the news on the deadlock. So basically, everybody is waiting to get through the deadlock of the debt crisis in America. Sorry, a debt crisis, but the debt standoff in America. But we are seeing that Taiwan Central Bank to weigh inflation and GDP in their next rate move. These are some of the rate hikes that you might see coming down the barrel. The dollar is steady as the debt ceiling worries weigh. So you actually see that even in New Zealand, it's starting to affect them right now. And we are still looking at all general data that is actually leading to one thing: what will happen if the U.S. Treasury defaults on debt payments? The whole world takes a giant, huge, intake of air because they're trying to figure out what is happening, what might happen, because we're all interconnected in a web, according to that. So now let's get into our deep dives for today. Our biggest deep dives that we're looking at, sorry about that. Let's get into our deep dives for today. Our biggest deep dives that we're looking at today is the Dangote refinery goes live. This is big African news. Africa's wealthiest man has actually come down into releasing the big Dangote refinery. The refinery has a refining capacity of 650,000 barrels per day and is expected to position Nigeria as a major exporter of high-quality petroleum products, further bolstering the nation's foreign exchange earnings. So remember, Nigeria used to export crude oil. Africa is bewitched and import finished oil. Right now, I think you can also see that Angola is trying to fix that as well. They got 5 refineries that they want to go live with, because right now the first one will be the Lobito one, which is why we're working on the Lobito corridor, which will then connect Lobito to Kolwezi, Kolwezi to Solwezi, bringing Angolan oil straight into Zambia at a much cheaper price if we can actually get that done. So if you actually, for Angola, their project, I think, is going to kick off 2026, going all the way into the 2030s. That's when they'll be able to become oil independent. Now, Nigeria is basically saying 650,000 tons. He obviously wants to do a lot more than that, but this is the first stage of it. It's the first iteration. He said once our plant is on full steam, we expect at least 40% of the capacity to be available for export, and this will result in significant forex inflows into the country. Now, these are the strategic partners that we obviously all want to try and connect with. Angola is supposed to be the one that can supply Southern Africa. Nigeria should be able to supply most of West Africa or the ECOWAS region, or at least as much of us as possible, and to obviously sell petroleum products. Now, there's something interesting about this. This is the biggest single train refinery, and we're going to show a little video that actually talks about what the significance of Dangote's refinery is. Just to share this, and like to thank one of my people in my Financial Freedom Fighters group. Thank you very much. He actually shared this for us. And this is a quick summary, but this is what we already read up when we actually read it. But this is a quick summary for all of you to see who love video format.
First, everything in this plant by way of size is the first. It is the single largest single train refinery in the world. There is no column which can process 650,000 barrels per day in one column, first of its kind. The capacity of RFCC builds the next best by miles. This is a 10 MMTPA plant. Maximum which you have seen is 6, 7. This is way ahead of that. And to add to that, this is an RFCC. This is a lot more complex one. You have probably one of the biggest hydrocrackers designed on a mild hydrocracking route, about upwards of 7.5 million tons capacity. One of the biggest MS blocks which you can have in the world, Your towers, which you see, the sizes of the furnaces, the reactor regenerator, it has touched the elastic limits of mechanical design. Beyond this, in a single train, is practically not possible. Everything big which you talk of in the world is right here.
So take a look at that. An African man, okay? Instead of our usual show the world with, I know that he's rich and I know that he's got stuff, okay? But instead of our usual show the world Instagram life, look at what happens when an African man consistently reinvests and constantly does business, okay? Focuses his attention on just getting bigger and better and reinvesting in his business, connecting partnerships. You see, the biggest problem, Vernon, has always been that our wealth is always based on what we can show people. But I like this because this is wealth that is actually significant. It's an actual significant mountain of something that's done. Yes, there are going to be questions about the EV race and everything, and I'm the one who's questioned it too. That oil demand will actually not be as hot as it will be, but over time, that's going to take time, obviously, to trickle through Africa. But it still is a huge, significant. It still is a very, very big and significant achievement. Okay, this is the kind of stuff we should be celebrating as people. Okay. Unfortunately, we're then going to start accusing such people of witchcraft. We then start accusing such people of selling years in Dubai. We then start saying they have built altars because you can't even imagine the fact that that level of engineering is being revered not just locally. We're talking about internationally. These are high levels of standard. Dangote didn't just build a refinery; he built a big one. Okay, and he has built a big one. So before we get on to the next story, Vernon, what say you on this kind of thinking?
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's beginning with a change of one's self mentality. I think something should drive you. If you can't do it for, I don't know, people around you, or I think my drive, comes from me wanting to get somewhere, and the whole mentality of selling my ears. When we were growing up, it was something that was serious, but of course, growing up, you see that it's just a matter of working hard and changing a few things here and there. And at the end of the day, I think it'll be something gratifying to see that Zambia can have many Dangotes, where we're able to make money from here, and of course sell our very own natural resources. I think in that regard, we will be actually helping our local economies to even grow stronger, even with regards to just foreign exchange earnings in that regard. And like, essentially depending on investors. And right now, in the news, actually, we're seeing associations calling on the government to, create leeway for, foreign investors to come and start running the mines again when we have people who have been in the mining industry for that long. Of course, not very familiar or quite equipped with how to run a mine, but they have been there for the longest time and they know the know-how at least. But we haven't taken that step of now manning up to run our very own mines. So I mean, if we could have people so interested, so passionate, and of course so hardworking in the mining, where they actually are able to run our very own local mines, I think it'll be very good. I think it'll be very wonderful to have a Dangote, people like Kinimbi, may so rest in peace, people who have built their economies, help structure, economies. I think Zambia, I mean, Africa at large has a lot to offer and has so much to actually even better itself. Now, African countries back and forth are the ones who are busy defaulting with the IMF. I think the IMF is continuously winning, and it is not something laughable or something pleasant to look at. I think as Africa, we need to realign ourselves and be able to realize what we have, because I think we are rich enough to be economically stable ourselves. So
So
big up to Dangote.
I'm going to read a lyric here from Jay Z. And it says, he wrote it, I think it was a song called Grammy Family. And he said, it's hard being Bobby Brown. To be Bobby, then you got to be Bobby now. What he's trying to say is that life is a process. Okay, I want everyone to understand that life is a process. So if you want to have an Aliko Dangote, you have to ask yourself, what was Aliko Dangote doing then to get an Aliko Dangote now? Because this is where I have an issue. Let's because we like talking about things like operating mines and everything. Where did Dangote start? This is the important story. We like to look at people and where they are and try to emulate that. And this is the failure, absolute failure of Africa. Is that, and a lot of African entrepreneurs, is that we look at where people are and we want to be there now. Okay. We don't say, where did this person start? And I want to build from there and get to here now. Okay, so because you have to start learning to look at starting point. Dumisani even had this where he was talking about, had an interview with somebody, and the person was busy saying, Dumi, I'm gonna be where you are. I'm gonna be where you are, in 5 years' time. And he looked at the guy and he said, no, you're not. And he said, I'll tell you why, because you're not doing what I was doing 5 years ago. You see, if you want to be where I am now, you have to be doing what I was doing 5 years ago now. Okay. So you have to take the journey. You have to start looking at everything as a journey. I think it was even in a conversation when they looked if you looked at the CNN Trade Kings documentary, the CEO even said, the CEO said the previous CEO was telling him, Lux, listen to me. The journey to the pursuit of being number one is not a destination, it's a journey. Okay, so if you think about things as a destination, you will struggle. But if you look at things as a journey, it's actually achievable. So let's ask the questions. Where did Dangote come from? Dangote Group was started in the 1970s when Aliko Dangote established a venture that traded sugar and consumer goods. Traded, not manufactured, traded. Okay, sugar and consumer goods, which was funded with a $3,000 loan from his grandfather. Now, yes, $3,000 back then was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money now. $3,000 is right now is about 50,000 kwacha. But if you adjust it for inflation, we're talking about hundreds of thousands. Okay, his grandfather was a wealthy man, was able to give him a loan. Now there are plenty of people, Vernon, who have gotten loans from their grandfathers, bought cars, and acted ignorant. So let's not pretend that, no, it's because he got a loan. It's because he's disciplined. That's the difference. He's disciplined. There are plenty of people who have inherited land from parents, sold it, and drank it. There are plenty of people who have inherited businesses from parents and grandparents, drank them things into the ground, spent the things into the ground, and they've mismanaged it. People, let's stop pretending as if an inheritance is the key to wealth. It is not. People are given money all the time in this continent. They are given inheritances all the time, and they all seem to squander them. Even globally, by the way, even in the US, 70% of wealth is destroyed by the next generation, 90% by the following generation. Aliko Dangote has taken grandfather wealth and turned it into billionaire wealth. That is a minority trick. In other words, there are things about him, okay, that actually have achieved this. So let's stop trying to disqualify ourselves because we just don't want to now start doing the harder work, Vernon, of doing work on ourselves. Because a lot of you know that if money hits your hand, you are not going to go and start trading sugar and then building a sugar company. If money hits your hand, you are going straight to the stores, you are going straight to the night establishments, you are going straight to party after party after party after party, and you know it. Okay, you know how I know this, Vernon? How much of that money that's come out of NAPSA has gone into businesses? I'll wait. Yeah, we know. We know that the majority of that money has not gone into business activity. Okay, because we know ourselves, we know our behaviors. No matter how many people have told you, please utilize the money for improving the economy. How many times have we dealt with CEEC delinquent loans because the person goes and gets a loan from Citizens Economic Empowerment, and instead of using it for the things that they said they would, it's in a car. Okay, how many times have we dealt with this where they get onto the ground and they say, but you said you're gonna buy an oil producer. Why is there a car outside of here? Okay, they've constantly had to fight this battle. So we know the behavioral traits that lead us here. So Aliko Dangote got a $3,000 loan from his grandfather. Later, the group would gradually expand into trading other commodities such as rice. So he went from sugar and other consumables. Then he started to improve rice. In the 1980s, he establishes two business enterprises, Dangote Nigeria Limited and Blue Star Services. This period was where they started to import, was when importing licenses were required to import bulk commodities. The firm then sought to acquire import license for various commodities, including steel, baby food, aluminum products. He then started going into shipping and importing for other groups. Dangote then completed and competes with companies like Chlanga Cement or Father Lafarge, a French company, and then he started doing bulk cement. Then he got a license. So you could see then he forayed in the late 1980s into manufacturing. Okay, so you can see a gradual process. He's trading the products. This is the exact same story, by the way, as Trade Kings. Trading the products, then they go a step back further to manufacturing the products, then they go a step further to now going into big things, because Trade Kings has even gone into steel. People, you can see, find a small entry point. Find a small and manageable entry point and then start going back. The problem is, your Kantemba does well immediately. We have to know that you own a Benz. Immediately, okay? Even if somebody owns a Kantem, immediately will know what car you own. Okay, this is where the problems come. So these are the guys who sacrifice a lot first. Okay, they take a lot of social sacrifice. They'll if they're driving a car, they'll drive a beat up small car for a period of time, because they know that the business has to do much better than their lifestyle. But us, we have an inferiority issue that the moment money hits our hand, they must know me. Those people who spoke about me, they must know me. Okay, those people who said I'll never make it, they must know me. Okay, and in that they must know me mentality, we don't get a Dangote. So you can say we want a Dangote in Zambia. Do we have the mindset that when we receive money, we reinvest it properly? Okay, or is it going to be they must know me mentality? And we'll go deeper into this later. And I know I've that word, but I'm just giving you the story that it started with a guy trading products. Okay, and he kept on reinvesting, he kept on expanding the line, and then he decided, you know what, I'm going to then go into import, then I'm going to go into manufacturing, then eventually, years go down the line. This oil refinery is a story that started in the 70s. It's an entrepreneur who started in the 70s, has constantly reinvested, has raised capital, but has constantly reinvested and grown himself significantly over a period of time. Yes, you can tell me the stories that no, he has politicians and all these connections, but he has still done well. You have political connections, some of you here who are listening, and you failed to materialize that into anything. Don't give me the story about your political connections, okay? A lot of the excuses people use to disqualify is just from the fact that, Vernon, nobody wants to take a 50-year journey. Nobody wants to take the 50-year journey that Aliko Dangote has taken. He has taken a 50-year hard work journey. It has been a slog. It has been difficult. He's been through recessions. He's been through government changes. He's been through so much to get to this point where he's able to say, I want to transform the oil of Zambia. Now, people will come to you first, Vernon, no business experience, nothing. I want to start an oil business. From where? You haven't even sold toothpaste. You want to start oil? From where? Where did you get this idea from that you can start? Okay? So I always tell people, start where you are and grow from there. This is where the problem is. Everybody wants to start here because next week we want to be in the places there at these Kuma malls showing people because they must know me. Okay, do you know who I am? Do you know what I can? That kind of mentality. Quickly, Vernon, before we get into the conversation on the other side, I will give you your chance to give you your thoughts on that. We did see that African ministers are actually calling for reforms in the IMF special drawing rights reforms. They're calling for that. African ministers of finance planning have actually said that the IMF special drawing rights are not properly stacked because what they do is that they give according to economic size. And they're saying, look, the biggest nations do not need special drawing rights. It's actually the smallest nations. So they're saying, can you find a way to actually give the quotas to the smaller nations so that they can actually draw from the IMF special drawing rights? It gives them a much better boost to actually get capital into their reserves. So this is a conversation they're having now because they're saying, look, we need it more than you do. Finally, here are the three options that the US does have for the debt ceiling. One, they could actually mint $1 trillion coin. They can actually mint a single coin, slap the title $1 trillion on it, and then request that the Federal Reserve gives them $1 trillion balance. The Federal Reserve said no, there are no magic rabbit, there are no rabbit out of hat tricks we're going to be pulling here, so no. Bond premium, the premium bond reissue means that all bonds that have matured in the US can actually be reissued. They're going to reissue them, but with higher coupon rates to try and do that. That'll be devastating to the system. Or they could actually just do a constitutional challenge and say, is a debt ceiling constitutional in the first place? There actually is the 14th Amendment in America. These are the battle points that can come. But remember, we're getting to a grinding point where on the 1st of June, there are questions that are going to be raised. On the other side of this, Vernon, we're going to talk about being rich. Okay, so looking rich versus being wealthy. I've led it up with a Dangote conversation. Right, and we're back, Vernon. Give us your. I know that I went on a tirade there about our "they must know me" mentality. So, give us your thoughts, my brother.
The mentality.
Just
Can you hear me though?
yeah, just a little bit more, just a bit higher. As my friend used
Right.
to say,
So
add some voice, add some voice.
yeah. So the mentality of how we can grow rich and be able to there is no better situation and scenario than of course one being rich, for starters. And I think it does not matter your profession or your field respectively, but I think even in a country where people are wealthy, even the economy should be good. The government equally should be taxing very well because people of course have the money. But in a country where we are all struggling, and I feel this is now why people feel like the Zambia has got money, and so our best resort now would be that we can work with the government. NGOs are flocking with the government, private sector as well. A lot of players actually are also trying to partner with the government because they feel that's where money is. But growing. Um, this mentality of working by ourselves and becoming like Dangote, it's a whole procedure that not many of us seemingly are ready to take. And you find that in the long run we have all of these vast challenges of someone is at 50, they've not achieved much. Someone is at 60, they have not really achieved much at the end of the day. So you find that the moment we will be able to grasp that we need to be able to nurture some of these mentalities in people and ourselves for us to be able to reach these notably pleasant, stories and personalities, around the world. It will take us a lot, and it will take us a lot of change for us to get there. It is attainable. It is not smooth. It's not easy, but it is very attainable. But now we're resorting to young people running into politics, hoping to be driving a VX very soon when he's given a position as councillor or whatever. And now young people are looking at CDF as a channel to sustain themselves with their livelihoods instead of seeing that as capital. So already there, we have a lot of shift mentality that has to be done. But then we're looking at also how that is being, prioritized. If we have people who feel money is the way to go and not education, then we're still going to be on this stretch of spending money, and money is of course being put to waste continuously. At the end of the day, we're not helping ourselves, we're not helping the government, we're not helping the economy, and we'll still be stagnant in this scenario, and will not have as many people. It's very not very pleasing to see how many people how many people are rich today. We can say we have this many rich people now in other countries, Dubai, in America, they are a whole
1,000.
lot. Yeah,
1,000
particularly
millionaires.
1,000.
1,000 out of a 10 million adult population. 1,000 millionaires.
That
That's
is
how
that is
wild it is.
nice. That's not something so that means a lot more people are not rich, and most of them of course are in poverty. And that's why poverty seemingly is a huge problem, because we need to start cultivating these mentality and thoughts in people at a very tender age, at every point in everybody's life. Make these things available. And this is why I'm telling people, find time during the morning just for about an hour, even for 30 minutes. Join us for Behind the Markets. They feel this is these conversations are people who are into stocks and markets. It's like, no, these are life changing words and sessions that you listen to, pick up what you can, because it is properly segmented in a way that I mean, if the first session will not really be for you, then I'm sure one of these sessions will be a segment will be for you. Listen in, pick up. In a space of a month or two, something will definitely hit you, and you start becoming money smart. But people revert to going for work as a priority, and you go for work, you're only working hard. At the end of the day, you only but keep earning the little money that you earn, because you're not building on your human capital, you're not building on your wealth yourself, you're not building on your wealth expansion. So I mean, do not complain when things are hard for you, because you do not know how to make more money. It's as simple, as plain as that.
So, Vernon, what is Zambia good at? Unfortunately, when actually written, the Irish ambassador was saying, thank you to Zambia for being the number one fastest growing Jameson drinking market. Honestly, people, how are these are the things that, honestly, people, these are the things that we now take pride in. This, as in, they actually posted this last year, where they actually said we are the number one Jameson drinking market in the country, and this is what we should be proud of. So, unfortunately, I'm gonna read the section from Chica Onyeni's Capitalist Nigger People. I know it's a painful book for people. I know, especially the black academics who say these are stereotypes. Don't say such things. You've offended me. I always ask people, show me he's wrong. Show me he's wrong. Don't tell me how you feel. Show me he's wrong. Okay. So let's get through what he had actually written here. This is in page. This is page 73 and to page 74. Because if we're gonna build wealth, we have to overcome this, for lack of a better word, Vernon, demon. We have to overcome this demon. Okay. Now he says in page 73, going on to page 74, and read 2 pages of it. The black illusion of success is measured by the kind of car we can drive. Fortunately or unfortunately, the Cadillac is no longer the measure of success for most Africans. It is now the Lexus, Mercedes Benz, BMW, Jaguar, or Acura. In Africa, there are more Mercedes Benz and BMWs and Jaguars than there are people. Obviously, I think he's exaggerating there, but yes, I think we get the point. This continent has been declared the poorest continent of the 20th century, since most of the countries gained their victories for independence from their former colonial masters, were unable to provide basic necessities to their citizens: good roads, clean water, good lighting, good healthcare, and good governance. Pause right there, Vernon. News story I saw recently is we had to bring in a Canadian group to come and help us build a basic hospital in a village area. people, can we stop using imported money for basic things? Like, seriously, can we stop raising money from outside for basic things? Like, seriously, this is where the problems are coming. We all know how to build. I've seen people build fancy houses here with their own money with Zambian contractors. Are you telling me we can't build like regular hospital rooms like in the villages? Honestly. Anyway, so he says we can't provide good lighting and everything. In fact, you see huge squalors and stews of people piled in garbage, mosquito infested waters. And yet, all around, you see cars upon cars, Lexus, BMW, Mercedes Benz, and other luxury cars. Pause. I once saw a place called Jack Buddha in SA. Okay, it's a tavern with tin shacks, but the cars you saw parked out there, Vernon, the cars, you couldn't believe it, bro. The cars that people had, Benz, all these things, and it's a tin shack establishment. And I'm thinking, but people, why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Okay, so let's continue. He reads again. Africans live for today. Let tomorrow take care of itself and be demanded. Our success is not measured by the amount of foreign reserves or of respective countries have, by the bulge of our individual bank accounts, by solid structure of our investments. All these indices that others use are not the same for blacks. Ours are measured by material things that have no value in the long run. Africans are considered to be the most loyal to product brands. It is a herd mentality. Whether it's politics or business, people know the black mentality because this is a herd mentality. Because of this herd mentality, companies discount Africa when it comes to advertising campaigns because they don't have to tell us. We already go out there and say, me, I'm a Jameson. Have you ever seen a Jameson ad? You ever seen one in Zambia? No. They don't pay. They're not on Money FM advertising. They're not on the other radio stations advertising. No, they're not, because they know that your inferiority complex already has driven you to aspire to their brand. They know this already. Okay? They know that the moment you get enough money in your pocket, you will give it to them. And just for a quick drink that will last you, I don't know, an evening, you'll wake up with a hangover, but now they've got your money forever. Okay, that's how this system works. Because of your inferiority, they know they can always extract money from the wealthiest of Africa. So let's continue with this this situation. And I say this again, Vernon, please point out anywhere in this reading where he's lying. Okay, blacks are considered after a thought to fulfill the most so-called quotas. Blacks always buy products whether we have markets for them or not. I'm going to skip quickly to here. Some companies like Timberland Shoe Company have articulated the fact that they allow marketing to blacks would cheapen the image. They don't even put our people in the images. Fortunately for them, blacks would prefer to buy the top of the line, anything that will cost them a lot as a status symbol. So why would you spend $200 on a pair of shoes for a kindergarten student when the parent should actually have this money going towards college education funds? Okay, the black illusion of success is also translated in the drinks that we drink. Africans drink a lot of Heineken. They think drinking Heineken will show them to be successful. It is the drink of success. It is a status symbol, and this is where the problem comes. I'm gonna stop right there. The issue, Vernon, is the amount of money that goes into status symbols as opposed to the amount of money that goes into actual assets. Okay, if people were to sit down and calculate the amount of money that has gone into status products versus the amount of money that has gone into unit trust, bonds, stocks, the actual amount of money where a lot of wealth in this country actually gets stored, the actual places where effective wealth is stored, if we actually counted these two things, then you have no excuse for the economic outcomes that we have. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We are more interested in looking rich than being wealthy. Okay? So I'm going to give you 4 tips quickly on how to assess yourself. Why do we look rich than be wealthy? Well, because we don't know how wealthy people actually live. We see things that some of them have. We see things that are flashed to us on TV. But what you'll notice is that people like Zuckerberg, even Jay-Z, have you noticed that the richer these guys are getting, like Jay-Z, you notice the richer this guy is getting, the less fancy he's looking. Has anyone ever noticed this? Like he's actually toning down a lot because at some point it stops being an issue for these guys. They don't realize that wealthy people spend money on things that they actually value, not things that other people's would value in them. Okay, so they stop trying to impress people, and also the communities they keep. We've actually created a community out of, like, let's say even my investor groups. What I've noticed is the conversations in those groups are very driven towards investing. So, and they talk about assets a lot. And because of that, that community has molded itself and created a lot of momentum around itself. And people are now gearing their money towards things like GRZ bonds and all sorts of things because of the community they're in. So the question you have to ask is, what communities are you in? What conversations are you having with people? Content you're consuming, communities you're in, are going to drive your mentality of money. So what communities are you in? What are you discussing? Okay, is it the latest this, the latest that, the latest this, the latest that? Then if that's the case, the moment money comes in, it's going to the latest this, the latest this, the latest that. Okay, versus what you're going to be doing. So I'm just going to give you the final clip that is going to drive this, Vernon. And I know that we're back at this point again. This is from the Money Guy, where they actually gave us a quick point on looking rich versus being wealthy. These guys have a vast experience in handling wealth clients.
Be wealthy over looking rich. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who care more about what your savings rate is and the future you're building and less about the car that exists in your garage. And you may say, oh man, that's hard. Me and my neighbors, we don't talk about money. We don't talk about the balance sheet. We have a community for you. If you're not a member of our Financial Mutant Facebook group, go to moneyguy.com, figure out how you can become.
Yeah, I'm going to leave them there. But the point I was trying to say is he's actually pointing out that when you have a community of people around you, okay, it actually affects the mentality you carry. So that's one of the things. That's why I said after I teach people in this area and I start to guide them in investing, I have to put them in a community so that they can start conversing in that language. So in their heads, they know that wealth is bonds, stocks, unit trust. That's what they know, because that's the conversations they're swirling around. But for you, wealth is cars, money, clothes. Okay, there's even a song, house, money, clothes. If that's wealth for you, okay, then that is what you're going to spend your money on. If wealth for you is assets, you're going to spend your money on assets. You know how I know this, Vernon? A lot of my clients have picked up have withdrawn their NAPSA. They have. About 10% of them have withdrawn their NAPSA. And you know what the majority of them have done with it? They've invested it. Because that is the mentality they're already harboring. They already know to do this. So they're withdrawing it and going straight into bond auctions with it. They're withdrawing and going straight into asset auctions. They're going straight into asset purchasing of stocks. They know what they're doing because they're already doing it and they're in a community that is driving them to do that. That's the difference. So we really have to change the conversations. We have to change the behavior. If you want to produce a Dangote, there's a way we need to stop. We need to start talking to one another. And I don't know if we've lost Vernon permanently right at the dot, but I'll leave that there.
Hey, actually had lost you there for a bit.
All right, no, we've closed up there, Vernon. Thank you, my brother, and I'll leave the last words to you before we go.
No, we're good. We're good. Looking forward to tomorrow.
All right, see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.